We've been sold a lie about happiness, that if you're not happy all the time, there must be something wrong with you. But the truth is, as humans, we aren't meant to be happy all the time. And so if you feel like you're failing because you aren't happy all the time, I need you to hear this. Because I can relate. I really spent years thinking that if I wasn't happy 24/7, I must be broken and there must be something really wrong with me. And also that I must be causing this by potentially not thinking positive enough. Because everywhere I look, we're really taught that happiness is the goal. And that if we aren't thinking positive enough or we aren't doing enough, then we must be the problem and the block to our own happiness. But the constant pressure to be happy, it really isn't helping us. And it's actually what's making us miserable. So today I'm going to break down why happiness isn't something you can achieve and what you can do instead. So the inspiration for today's video came from my experience this week. I had a couple of days this week where I was feeling really, really heavy and exhausted and struggling to do anything at all. And some of the thoughts that were popping into my head was, I'm lazy, I'm never going to get off the couch, what's wrong with me, why am I feeling so down? And this is a feeling that in the past, if I had felt this way, I definitely would have spiraled into a depression and felt I'm broken and the world's ending. You know, how sometimes we can get really extreme when we're in these feelings because they do feel so heavy. And it doesn't help when we're being told that we shouldn't be feeling this way. So this week when I had about 4 days when I was feeling really, really heavy, and I went onto YouTube and I watched a video. I wanted to feel better, so I thought, let's watch a video. This video popped up by a spiritual guru who has 2 million followers, and I don't really know them very well. I've watched 1 or 2 of their videos, and so I decided to give this one a watch. And they were talking about manifestation, which is such a hot topic at the moment. So I was like, great, let's listen. And he was also talking about, I've started to really get into astrology. I really, really love it. It's not something I've ever been into, but he was talking about something that was going to come up this week, how one of the new moons was really going to impact us. And he was saying that you need to be really, really careful for your energy this week. You have to be really, 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 really positive because you don't want to manifest something negative, right? And as I'm watching this, I felt my stomach just kind of clench up. The thoughts in my head started to race and I started to think, oh my God, like I'm not feeling positive. I'm not thinking positive. Am I going to end up manifesting something really, really negative? Because he said, if you're not thinking positive, you're going to end up using this new moon to manifest something really negative. And I think for someone with 2 million followers to be saying something like that because they have such authority, you know, it's no wonder that so many people, and especially this was me in the past, right, would sit there and listen and start to beat themselves up and work themselves into a spiral of overthinking and negative thinking because you're thinking, this person who has so much authority, they must really know everything and be talking, you know what they're talking about because they have a huge platform, is telling me that I'm basically read between the lines based on, what you believe to not be happy means, but that I'm bad because I'm thinking negatively right now. I'm feeling negatively. And that means that I'm going to create bad in my life and therefore I'm to blame for that. And that's really heavy to sit with. So it's no wonder in the past when I sat with an emotion that felt very heavy, I started to associate that with not being good. That heaviness and that feeling and that sensation meant that I must be doing something wrong. Because the other thing that we also hear a lot is, and I wonder if you can relate to this, but you can choose every emotion. And while to a degree, yes, like I agree, the conversations are really nuanced. And so the issues can come when people who are not fully integrated with this information, who maybe haven't gone through the same depths of depression, or maybe they have, but they don't quite understand the nuanced conversation here. And I watched another YouTube video, I've loved my YouTube at the moment this week, where someone else was speaking about, you choose your emotions. And while I really do think that some of this is really helpful, it can also be really harmful. Because bring it back to that person and like me this week, when I'm in that state of feeling really heavy and someone's telling me that you choose your emotions, it's extremely disempowering Lucky for me, I've done a lot of work and I have the tools now that, okay, I heard this guy saying, you should be thinking positive or you're going to manifest something negative. I actually know that that's not quite true, and we'll get into that in a minute. But old me, and I wonder where you are in your journey, old me back a couple of years ago, if I'd heard that, I'm getting emotional now for how strongly that would have impacted me, because I didn't have the inner authority, I didn't have the tools, and I didn't have the capacity to figure out a way to feel better, or not even feel better, to sit with the heaviness when someone is telling me I'm about to manifest terrible things into my life. I want to bring it back here to say the heaviness and the so-called bad feelings, are they really the problem? Or is it the way that we've been taught to look at and associate meaning to these feelings? When we've been conditioned to believe that happiness is the goal, and for example, for women, we're told, be a good girl, smile, be happy, or else, we aren't taught to be able to hold and tolerate emotions that aren't considered good. Now, the problem with this toxic positivity and the idea that we need to be positive all the time or bad things will happen, it's completely incorrect. And while, yes, we may at times be able to choose our emotional states, that doesn't mean we always should. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, lately I've been doing a lot of work on grief and anger. I've been feeling a lot of grief and anger. And so this week, when the heaviness was coming through, it wasn't a so-called bad thing. It was actually part of the process. Because we can store emotions in our body, so when we go through something traumatic and we don't have the capability to hold it and handle it at that time, we don't have the tools and resources, we can store that energy and those emotions within our body. So at some point, we're going to need to come back to them and process them. And so that's exactly what I was doing this week. I was feeling heavy. I was randomly crying. And because my body, the trauma I've been through, it's been quite numb for a little bit. Crying is new for me. I haven't been able to cry properly and grieve, because again, as a society, grieving is seen as a more negative thing. It's not the positive. So we don't often provide ourselves the space to slow down enough to feel that grief and to process it. And so many of our emotions get pent up within ourselves. If you'd like a full video on this is one of my favorite topics. Let me know in the comments below if you'd like a video all about stored emotions and how we can release them in a really healthful way, because it doesn't have to be a really negative experience. So this week, I was grieving and I was crying and I was just processing, because I'd slowed down enough to actually feel my feelings. And then I had, as I said, the people on the internet, the gurus, telling me that right now is the exact time that because of the energies and the planets, that we should be feeling positive and happy and manifesting all of these positive things. And even though I have the tools and resources to handle myself right now, it's still hard, right? When you're being told that you are wrong, you are bad, and you're not feeling the way that you should. And this is a real problem. The conditioning around, whether it's good girl conditioning, whether it's spiritual bypassing, meaning focusing, there's a lot of this out there. So spiritual bypassing is when you're focusing on all the positives, the manifestations, and you're not actually looking at the depths of maybe grief, maybe anger, or the other side. It's really toxic positivity, focusing only on the good feelings and bypassing or not feeling the so-called bad feelings. Because happiness is not a destination. We've really been sold this lie that happiness is something we can achieve, but it's just not true, because we're not allowing space then for the human experience. Humans were given a full spectrum of emotions for a reason. We were given an ability to feel and sense for a reason, not just so we could be happy all the time. And this is a real cliche, but it's true. Like, you can't have light without the dark. But the biggest thing is there doesn't need to be suffering within the dark. When we can change the way that we think about the darkness, the heaviness, the depression, then we can change the way that we feel about it. And it doesn't have to be this horrible negative experience. Because when you feel like you should always be happy, you can create that identity or the feeling of being a failure when you feel any other way, feeling like you're broken if you feel any other way. And that was very much my experience, and I see it within my clients as well. This feeling that if I am not perfect and happy all the time, I must be doing something wrong. And this even came up for me this week, right? I felt, what am I doing so wrong that in this week where I'm supposed to be feeling good, I feel so bad? But the truth is, I wasn't doing anything wrong. We are all on our own journeys and timelines. Just because someone else is feeling happy and that's supposedly aligning with the planets or so the astrology or whatever's going on around, whether you follow that or don't, it might just be comparing yourself to someone else's life. Why am I so depressed and why are they so happy? The minute we start to do that, we take away from our own journey and our own experience, because we're all here to live our own unique life, which means we're going to have different emotional experiences. And so sometimes these tools like self-help and manifestation can actually become harmful instead of helpful when they start to make you feel wrong for your own experience, that you should be creating a different emotional experience. This is when they become harmful, and we need to take a step back and start to check in with ourselves. I talk a lot about coming back to ourselves, getting to know ourselves and our bodies and our own intuition, because only we know what we need. And for example, when everyone else is happy, you might be like me this week, but you need to retreat a bit. Step into the feelings that are potentially seen as more dark, as more heavy, and feel those feelings. Because it's only through sitting with, accepting, and integrating both the light and the dark that we can have a full experience of life, which includes joy and pleasure and fun. When we bypass the grief and when we start to think, you will just manifest badness into your life if you feel bad and you have to be positive, that's when you cut off your ability to have that full spectrum experience of life, and where you're going to start to numb yourself and find those coping mechanisms and habits that are not serving you start to pop in. Because it's actually the message that you need to be happy all the time that is keeping you stuck, that creates more shame, that creates more grief, and disconnects you further from yourself and who you truly are. So I just want to reiterate what we've spoken about so far. Happiness is not something to achieve. If you aren't feeling the positive, good emotions, this does not make you a failure or bad, and you are not manifesting badness into your life. These are really important points, and if you start to feel that negativity around self-help and manifestation, it's really time to take a step back. Okay, so what can we really do about it? And we've spoken about this a little bit so far, but it's time to remove the judgment from our emotions and create space in your life to feel the full spectrum of emotions. And the reason so many people feel stuck is because they're resisting their emotions and their feelings instead of actually allowing them to move through. And if this is you, it's not your fault. You are not to blame. Our society hasn't really made space, especially how busy our lives are right now. It's almost like our culture is teaching us to avoid our emotions because we're just running around always so busy that we don't have time to feel our feelings. There's always something to do, right? We're always doing things. But as long as we're doing things and chasing happiness, which is a doing or an action, we're not making space and time for us to feel and be. And I get it. Sitting in my feelings this week was not pleasant. It was not comfortable. I felt quite afraid of the unknown. Would this end? What was going to happen? The grief did not feel fun. But I knew that if I felt my feelings, if I created space for it, which meant maybe not going out for social things, I knew that I just needed to be with myself. So I canceled some plans. I actually, this is very rare for me, didn't go to the gym because I knew that sometimes our bodies don't want force and push. I knew my body needed to rest. So I could have done some yoga or gentle movement, but I decided to actually choose stillness. And if this is new for you, it can be quite foreign and scary. And so you don't have to do what I did at all. I've been practicing this for a while now. You may just not go to one social thing if that's what feels right for you. I'm not telling you what to do. It's what looks and feels right for your life and you. But it may mean switching the gym for yoga. It may mean I went to the ocean and I did little things that was self-care to ensure that through this time, I was staying grounded, connected to nature, and ensuring that I was doing self-care and honoring my feelings. That may sound really weird as well. I know if I'd said that to my past self, I'd be like, what do you mean honoring your feelings? Like, what are you talking about, this weird touchy-feely stuff? But it's through acknowledging and honoring your feelings and letting them pass through and working with them instead of against them that something really interesting will start to happen. You're going to find that joy starts to creep into your life without even trying. Think about it like this. If your cup is full of dirty water, and then you just keep pouring more and more dirty water into the cup, do you really think that clean water is just going to magically appear? So instead, we need to start cleaning the cup by pouring in clean water. And eventually all of the dirty water is going to flow out and you'll have a cup of clean water. So I think you get here, we've got the dirty water, which is the heaviness and the stuckness, and the clean water is the nourishing, is the feeling of the feelings. As you pour the clean water in, you're allowing the dirty water to gently flow out and have its own process because you've allowed yourself to feel the feelings. So you're not stuck because you're sad or not feeling good. You're stuck because you're resisting your sadness and making yourself bad because you feel that way. So the problem isn't negative emotions, it's how we're treating what we call negative emotions. Because imagine if we saw grief and sadness as something that was just natural, something that was just necessary, instead of something that needed to be fixed. Because we have a real obsession with fixing ourselves and that we are broken. But what I want to leave you here with is, what if you are not broken? What if your body is functioning exactly as it should be? There's just a few little tweaks that need to be made. For example, shifting how you judge and view how your body feels, shifting how you judge and view how your body is reacting to certain situations, and really starting to create that space to allow yourself to process what's going on instead of shoving the things that we think are bad down. You do not need to be positive all the time. You are not creating negativity in your life because you are not manifesting positive things because you don't feel good. This is so natural. It's a natural rhythm for us to go up and down and to feel different feelings. That's just the human experience. So let's be humans. If you want to dive deeper into the science behind this, I've actually done a video on why just be happy is terrible advice. So I talk about the nervous system and I give you some step-by-step actions to take to help shift your physiology and your body into a more joyful state. So I'll pop the link below if you'd like to access that video, and let me know in the comments. Have you ever felt that toxic positivity has made you feel worse? Let's talk about it. Once again, thank you so much for listening, and I will catch you in the next episode.